Recording in progress.
It is 1 p.m. I would like to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Tanya Balda, Deputy Clerk for the record. When I call your name, please say present. Chair Casey,
Present.
Vice Chair Nedenrip,
Present.
Member Walder,
Present.
Member Klutz,
Present.
Member Nilsson, Member Paxton.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum present, and at this time I would like to ask Kirk Walder to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to start public comment. Public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Planning Commission. Additional public comment may be allowed on individual agenda items at the discretion of the chair. It is requested that members of the public comment on those items when they are considered. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If the content is disruptive, irrelevant, slanderous, offensive, inflammatory, or a personal attack on planning commissioners, staff, or members of the public, the individual will be instructed to stop speaking and sit down. First speaker, please. Colleen, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no public attendees on Zoom at this time.
Okay, quiet. So I will close public comment at this time. All right, then I will move to approval of the agenda. Are there any comments from commissioners? Mark, do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to approve the agenda of the meeting here today.
Does that include corrections submitted by any of the commissioners?
Madam Chair, I second approval of the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes. Mark?
Yes, Madam Chair, would like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the March 8th Planning Commission meeting and the corrections previously provided to the clerk's office.
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion is passed. Now we will move to the public hearings. For possible action, discussion on ordinance 2022-1599, an ordinance amending provisions of Chapter 20.622 of the Douglas County Code, including the setting of occupancy limits allowing vacation home rental, VHR permits to be issued to closely held corporate entities grandfathering in existing multiple VHR permit holders through October 1st, 2024, subject to the conditions and terms of renewal, clarifying the liability insurance that must be held by VHR permit holders, increasing the length of the term of the VHR Advisory Board members from 2 years to 4 years, imposing liability for persons who assist in the leasing of VHRs without a valid VHR permit, modifying the fine structure, increasing the time which a notice of appeal must be filed from 10 days to 14 days of the date the first notice of violation was mailed, increasing the occupancy from 2 per bedroom to 2 per bedroom plus 2 for properties with 4 or fewer bedrooms, limiting occupancy to 4 persons per on-site parking space if occupancy exceeds 2 per bedroom, and other related amendments clarifying the intent of the regulations. Doug Ritchie presenting. Boy, that's a mouthful.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. This ordinance makes further revisions to the VHR regulations, the vacation home rental regulations. It's substantially similar to the ordinance that the Planning Commission considered before and recommended to the Board of County Commissioners. There are some changes that have been made. The changes to the regulations are indicated in red lines that are available in the agenda and the supplemental materials. However, I will highlight a few items that the members of the Planning Commission may want to know about. One is that the maximum number of Tier 2 and Tier 3 VHR permits will remain at 600 and not be increased to 650. That's found in 20.622.030A. Also, the number of occupants per tier is going to remain as originally adopted. In other words, Tier 1, maximum occupancy of 4, Tier 2, maximum occupancy up to 10, and Tier 3 is 11 or more occupants at the vacation home rental. We further clarified that individuals who hold multiple permits at the time of the adoption, June 3rd, 2021, will be allowed to renew those multiple permits through October 1st, 2024. It had been proposed that these multiple permit holders have until December 31st, 2031 to dispose of their VHR rentals or otherwise come into compliance with the regulations. That has been decreased again till October 1st, 2024. VHR occupancy will remain at 2 per bedroom. However, an additional 2 persons per property may occupy the rental if the property has 4 or fewer bedrooms, in other words, it's Tier 2, and occupancy is tied to available on-site parking if the bonus 2 persons is used. Again, we believe there is, without going into too much detail, a federal judge believed that there was not a rational relationship between parking and occupancy. I think everybody agrees that there is a need to tie some parking to these additional, more intensive use of the property. So if any property owner wants to make advantage of the +2 occupancy, they have to provide evidence of on-site parking. I think perhaps the most important thing is that the maximum fine has been restored to $20,000. As the board may be aware, the judge imposed an injunction capping the maximum fine at $5,000. I think everyone that has looked at this agrees that in order to have a deterrent effect, we need to be able to have a maximum that's higher than $5,000. One thing that has also happened, just as a reminder, the prior ordinance only attached liability to the VHR owner. The new regulations also can impose liability on those who assist VHR property owners who market or manage those VHRs if they do not have a VHR permit. So I think this gives staff the ability to expand enforcement efforts to those who are actually helping assist in the illegal operation of the VHR. So I think that's a good thing. Just a few other minor points. VHR permits continue to be non-assignable and must be renewed annually. It is a privilege license. It's like a liquor license. You can't assign it without permission. You have to apply for a new one if you're selling the property to someone else. Also, there's some clarification regarding the proof of liability insurance must come from a company that's regulated by the Nevada Division of Insurance. And I think those are the highlights. Again, the details in the ordinance are found in the red lines, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the members of the Planning Commission or the public may have. And with that, I'm available for questions, Chairwoman.
Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
I just have two, I think, quick questions for you, Doug. Do you know, is there other litigation pending, or is this the only lawsuit that we have right now that we're coming forward with the settlement agreement?
Thank you. Chairwoman, if I may. Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. That's an excellent question. There is only one litigation involving the county. It's in federal court, and that has actually been dismissed based on the settlement agreement. What's before the Planning Commission today is not the settlement agreement per se, but the changes to the ordinance that are related to the settlement agreement.
Thank you very much. And the settlement agreement doesn't affect, except in a minor way, am I correct, the future possible changes to the ordinance? We do have a grace period that has been stipulated in the settlement agreement that we can't amend this for a certain time period, but there will be a process that we'll go through with the VHR Advisory Board, so future amendments to the ordinance may be possible.
Yes, Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. That is correct. The settlement agreement, in fact, the settlement agreement contains specific provisions recognizing the Board of County Commissioners as elected representatives of the people of Douglas County have the ability to change, further amend the Title 20 and Title 20.622, which is the VHR regulations. What the county did agree to do was hold off, the Board of County Commissioners agreed to hold off on making any further revisions until the VHR Advisory Board had an opportunity to collect some data, see how the program's working, and make recommendations back to the board.
Thank you very much.
Bryce, do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I do not.
Any other questions? I just have one comment, Doug, if I may. On page 100 of the settlement agreement in our packet, paragraph G, I think it's page 6 of the settlement agreement. Starts off for good and valuable consideration. It is an excellent paragraph. You cover every base in this paragraph. It's long. It covers anything that could possibly come up with regards to claims, demands, losses, damages. I was thoroughly impressed. It's wonderful and no typos. It was kudos to you and your office on that.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
If we have no other questions or comments, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who have comments right now for this item? Yes, sir. If you'll please sign in and give your name for the record.
On-site parking, is particularly in regards to having 4 people per car, because you could have a 2-bedroom house, You could have parking for the 2 cars, you're gonna have 8 people showing up and only beds for 6. Doesn't make any sense, the math doesn't add up, because you are limiting occupancy to how many people can be in the cars for if they have 2 people more, so 2 per bedroom, 2 on the couch. So that's just one thing. The other thing is you really have to figure out a way to monitor how many people are there, because what happens now, we've noticed, we can see one of these houses from our deck, they had 14 people there, they're only permitted for 8. They had cars in the street. You say you have no jurisdiction over cars in the street because they can park in the street. So in other words, what's to stop them? You go, yeah, sure, we got 3 parking spots, we can put 4 people in there, sure, you could do that at this house too. Although it's only allowed 8, they get 3 cars, 4 per car, there you go, you're already over limit with 10. And they had 14 people. How are you going to monitor, even with the permit in the windshield, doesn't matter because they're parked on the street somewhere and they're there overnight, and we have photos of all the cars there and nobody cares. We have pictures of the extra cars, we have pictures of the 14 people on the deck, we have pictures of the cars during the day, in the middle of the night, and in the morning, and nobody cares because they're in the street. And we can't verify, according to your words, how many people are actually in the house. So what good does all this really do? You have to ask yourself that. What are you really accomplishing here but making rules that you can't enforce and you won't enforce? What's the big deal?
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We'll address your points when I'm done with public comment. Okay. We'll address your comments when we're done with public comment. Anyone else? Colleen, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nope, we still do not have any public attendees on Zoom.
My name's Linda Dangler.
Could you pull the microphone down, please? Thank you.
My name's Linda Dangler, and I have the same sort of issue about the parking. I don't understand how there can be 4 people per car. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. And how many cars does that mean when you're really 8 people plus 2 added now on a couch? So at a tier 2, you've got 10 people. And it doesn't make any sense to have, 4 cars then for 10 people, for 4 people each? I mean, I don't understand this at all, truly. And at the house that we're speaking of on Amy Court has parking, has 8 occupants now, which means this will change it to them having 10. And they have 3 cars in the driveway and another car on the street. And again, as he said, there's, but the car's on the street, so who can say? Well, that street happens to have one other house on it that Jean and Dale own, an elderly couple, who have 2 cars that they keep in their garage. So the only cars on that court, Amy Court, are from this rental house. So they got 3 in the driveway, and the 3 in the driveway blocked access for safety reasons. I took a photo the other day. There's no way they could get a stretcher past the cars in the driveway. And they have a sign up that says you can't use the garage to park cars right there on the thing. So, any other car that's in that cul-de-sac belongs to the vacation home rental. And it means too many. And as he said, we've got photos of 14 people standing on the deck and photos of the cars during the day, the same cars at night, overnight, and the same cars the next day. So those 14 people are living in that house, and when you look at the ads for it, which I'm going to bring to the next VHR meeting, the ads they put out show all 14 beds. They're allowed 8. They say they have 9 beds, but they only have 8 beds for people. But when you count the beds, looking at the pictures, they've got so many beds that there's room for 14. I don't know how that qualifies.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Mr. Ritchie, can you address their complaints?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. Those are excellent points. I mean, at the end of the day, any of these regulations are subject to enforcement. I will say that the Board of County Commissioners has increase the budget. There's 2 DCSO deputies that are now dedicated to VHR enforcement, and I believe they've doubled the code enforcement staff dealing with VHRs. I will point out that in 2.622.030E of the regulations, and 5E, F, and G, it deals with parking. And for instance, emergency access G, parking areas with drive-through driveways require a minimum 10-foot wide unobstructed lane for emergency access vehicles. All other driveways require a minimum 6-foot wide unobstructed lane for emergency ingress and egress. The most important point, final determinations regarding suitable on-site parking will be made by the county, consistent with county code and other applicable regulations. In other words, if there are issues regarding narrow roads, restricted access, staff has the ability to address that with the permit holder when either they apply or when they renew. Also, under subparagraph F, Douglas County reserves the right to impose special parking conditions in areas or under circumstances which justify it, such as narrow roads or heavy traffic during special events, etc. Again, I don't think anybody that's been involved in this process, and it's been a multi-year process, believes that we're done. The hope is that the VHR Advisory Board, as they hear from residents, like members of the public who are experiencing problems, they'll be able to gather data and then bring that data to the Board of County Commissioners with recommendations on how to address those problems.
So the best option for Ms. Dagler and Mr. Roberts is to go to the VHR board with this information that they have and present their photographs and their address of this home and present their complaint there. Then the VHR board can address this issue directly.
Chairwoman, if I may, there's actually 2 ways they can do it. They can contact code enforcement. If it's on-street parking, they can contact the sheriff's office. And also, as far as changes to policy, if they believe that, which I understand is what they're asking for, is changes to the regulations, you're correct, they should go to the VHR Advisory Board and say, look, here are examples of problems. Here are things we think should be changed in the regulations.
Mr. Booth?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Booth with Community Development. I would just agree with Doug and can state that Ms. Dangler, I'm in receipt of an email that you had sent to Richard Lauritsen, our code enforcement supervisor, and I know he's looked into some of the questions you've raised, and he's responded back to some of your questions. Would just relay that we'll continue looking into those issues with these addresses and and trying to respond to the complaints and the photos, the information you've provided. As Doug's described, and I think the Planning Commission's heard Tom and I discuss, as this ordinance has evolved and the rules have been tweaked and some through the litigation, we've been working to solidify our processes and make that clear to the permit holders, the public, and as well as our staff. And now we're hopeful that if the VHR ordinance is approved as it's written today by the commissioners, that staff will really be able to focus on the enforcement side of the existing code and the permitting. And the VHR board has been working through quite a bit of that over the past few months with permits for tier 3s. Some of the things mentioned are areas that we're going to struggle with and we need to work hard on. Parking in a public street and trying to identify, if that vehicle parked in a public street is associated with a vacation home rental or it's a neighboring property down the street that's not a vacation home rental. And occupancy of the houses as well, when we have a concern about occupancy. Of course, we know the code allows it during the daytime. In some instances, there could be up to 50 people in a home visiting, coming in and out of the house. Our occupancy limits are who's renting that, who's staying overnight. So confirming those things, that takes a lot of time and follow up and research and with the renters themselves and some of the posting ads. Quite a bit of work, and we'll continue looking into those for you.
Any more comments from commissioners?
Madam Chair. I want to let you people know that I listened to those comments very carefully. I do live at Lake Tahoe too. I have probably 5 or 6 vacation home rentals that are in my neighborhood. We have good vacation home rentals. We have bad vacation home rentals. It's simple as that. 95% of them are probably good. Follow the rules. The ones in my neighborhood, I never see problems with parking. I never see problems with trash. I never hear problems with noise. But I think the key thing that Sam Booth has mentioned and that Doug Ritchie has mentioned is we now have good enforcement. The enforcement budget has gone up from $103,000 to $618,000. So we have people that are there. They're ready to go out in the street. As Sam and Doug mentioned, the sheriff's office is ready to enforce problems that they enforce. We have the $20,000 fine now in place, so we can go after the bad actors. And I would, again, amplify what Sam Booth said. If you have complaints, document them, file them with code enforcement, register them with the Vacation Home Advisory Board, and we'll get the problems, VHRs weeded out, and the program will go forward successfully, I think. So I do also want to just take a minute to thank the District Attorney's Office. I know Doug Ritchie and Sam Taylor have worked on this for a long, long time. I hope the Board of County Commissioners is not going to look over their shoulders when they see their legal bill, but they have done yeoman's work. It has been very successful. I don't agree with everything that's in the ordinance, but we're at the point now where we need to move this forward, get the rules and regulations in place, get them enforced, strongly enforced, and move forward. I also want to thank the community development staff. Tom Dallaire has done a ton of work on this issue, and we're very lucky we've got him in the position that he's in, doing the work that he's doing. Sam Booth has done a lot of work as well to follow up on all the individual situations that need to be handled. Ann Reno and the code enforcement staff as well have done a wonderful job getting this moved forward and putting us in a position to have a successful program. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Jennifer Davidson, Assistant County Manager. She has been working on this for longer than she would probably want to say, and she has spearheaded the effort to get us where we are today. So I think we can all give her our thanks. And then we do have a excellent Vacation Home Rental Advisory Board. They have been working very long and very hard. They examine the vacation home rentals that come to them, the Tier 3s, scrupulously for all of the compliance issues that you've raised and other people have raised. So that is an important resource as we're moving forward to get the system operating effectively. So I again don't agree with everything that has moved forward in the ordinance. I think the task force that Jennifer spearheaded initially did a great job. I think the county manager's office made improvements when they tweaked the ordinance. The ordinance in some ways got a little bit jumbled after the task force and the county manager's office, and that precipitated the lawsuit and put us where we are today. So I think I will be in favor of this. I think we've got a good program in place, and please, we always want to do the right thing when it comes to the neighborhood and the communities that vacation home rentals are in. And I'm one of those, so I share your concerns and I appreciate your attendance here today. Thank you.
Bryce, do you have any comments?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Kirk, after that, do you have a motion?
If there's no other discussion or questions, I will recommend the Planning Commission approve ordinance 2022-1599 to the Board of County Commissioners.
Madam, I'll second that.
Oops, we have a motion by Kirk Walter, a second by David Nelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Number 2, for possible action, discussion on a request for a special use permit, DP 22-0054, for a pet crematorium on a .79 acre parcel located at 1435 Industrial Way in the S1 Service Industrial Zoning District in the Gardnerville Community Plan. The applicant is Michael Buffo, and the property owner is Grant Loeffler, APN 1220-03-310-036. Lucille Rayo presenting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Lucille Rayo, Community Development. This is a vicinity map showing the parcel in blue. It's in the Light and Service Industrial Zoning District.
Lucille, could you just make sure screen sharing's enabled there?
Oh, may not be, sorry.
Excuse me.
Colleen, do we have screen share?
Yes, it's on.
Sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Service Industrial Zoning District. A little bit of discussion and background. As we took a look at the code, we were trying to find a definition that would work. And there's 2 places in code for appropriate definition. And the 2 uses that closely resemble the use would be a cemetery and a use of community significance. Packet pages 110 and 111 contain the tables for cemetery and use of community significance. So for the definitions, County Code 2660050, cemetery means a place designated for the burial or keeping of the remains of the dead, whether human or animals, including crematories, mausoleums, and I think it's supposed to be columbariums, operated within the boundaries of the cemetery. This use shall provide proof of having obtained and having maintained as many as may be periodically requested by the county, all local, state, and federal permits. And a use of community significance is a use which the commission determines to have significant historic, cultural, economic, social, or environmental value to the county, which does not conform to the use regulations of the district in which the use is located as a result of either the adoption or amendment of this code, and which cannot be made conforming through any other discretionary review process under this code. Floor plan of the building. It's a 10,000 square foot building. The arrow's pointing to the area of where the proposed use. And this is a photo from the assessor's site showing the building, and this is the building, and this is the area where the proposed business will be located. There have been conditions imposed on the project if it is approved. They must submit to fire district for review. Connection to any water and sewer may be required. A letter from the Nevada Bureau of Air Pollution Control. And then some conditions throughout the life of the project. If they chose to expand the project in any way, they would have to come back before the Planning Commission for that expansion, for approval for that expansion. And then if they choose to put a sign up, they need to come to Community Development for a permit for the sign. Did attend the Town of Gardnerville meeting last night. The Town of Gardnerville reviewed the special use permit. They did approve it 5-0. Some of their concerns were questions that they asked the applicant were there smoke or smell emanating from the site, or will there be? What type of permits are required? They wanted to know what type of animals Mr. Buffer would be picking up and cremating. He did explain to them that it's only small domestic animals. The town has some conditions as well. They're looking to be reimbursed for any review of the project. They are going to require a trash enclosure to be installed because there is currently not one on the site. And a standard condition that the county and the towns have on all projects is any damage to the town's infrastructure they would have to reimburse us for or repair. No, I did not receive any public comment on this application. findings have been met. And based on the ability to make the findings and subject to the recommended conditions of approval, staff recommends approval of DP 220054, a special use permit for Michael Buffo, based on the staff report, required findings, presentation, and public comment. And we are recommending approval, as stated before. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the commissioners? Bryce, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only concern would have been any kind of smell or odor or anything that might come from it. I would assume that those were addressed by the applicant to the town of Gardnerville. So I would just wait to hear from the applicant or hear kind of how those concerns were addressed. And that's all I would have.
Thank you, Bryce. Lucille?
Yes, thank you for that question. The applicant is here. His representative for the unit that he is purchasing is here as well. And as it was described last night, I won't repeat what they're going to say, but he did say there would be no smoke or smell. So I'll leave that up to the applicant and his representative. They can explain in detail how that works.
If there are no other questions for staff at the moment, I will ask the applicant to come up, sign the record, and please state your name.
My name is Mike Buffo. So there's no smoke, no smell. The reason for that is because these units run so hot. It's a very complete burn, and there's no ash, and there's basically nothing left to cause a smell or smoke or ash or anything like that.
Would you like to discuss your project, the process?
You bet. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Mike Buffo, and I was born and raised here. I have a small rendering business where I pick up euthanized livestock and pets, and my wife is a small animal vet, so we have a really good working network with both large animal and small animal vets in the area. With that being said, there was the only other pet crematorium in town where it was at Carson Valley Vet Hospital, and they recently stopped doing that about 11 months ago or so. So that's how we recognized the need for it. Along with that, there's 8 small animal clinics in Douglas County and about just as many mobile animal clinics. That being said, some of them do about 5 euthanasias a day on average, 7 days a week. Everything's being shipped to Reno. And that being said, the facility you guys saw was at 1435 Industrial. We'll have our cremator, that's the machine, a large walk-in freezer, and just an office and workspaces. I'll be working directly with vet hospitals, and then, so with a company vehicle, I will go pick up frozen remains, bring them back, and put them directly into the freezer, and cremate them when we're ready. And then I'll return the remains to the vet hospitals, and they will distribute them to the owners. That being said, like I mentioned, everything's being shipped to Reno right now, so we recognized a big need for it in the community. It'd be a much better peace of mind for pet owners not having their remains shipped, and it'll be a lot less likely for them to get lost, and it'll also be cheaper for for pet owners in the area as well. And just to reiterate, there is no smell, there's no smoke, and there's no waste there won't be animal parts or anything like that hanging around. Yeah.
Questions for the applicant? Dave?
A question that came up talking to someone else was, how do you ensure that the person that's turned their animal into cremation, that they get the remains from that animal?
So when we have, when you get an animal from the clinic, there'll be software set up. It's online software, and they'll fill out a tag. I'll have a physical list. They fill out a tag that goes with the animal. It's also online. So not only can I see every animal being processed throughout and then they can see exactly where that animal is. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Pretty much, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Michael, is it correct that an individual homeowner can't just drive up to your facility and drop off an animal, can they?
You know, starting off, I only plan on dealing with veterinary clinics themselves. I won't be set up for individual pet owners to come in. It is something I'd be interested in.
Thank you. And I have one more question for staff. Lucille, we know that some of the owners of the buildings are not the tenants of the buildings. And have you verified that the signs were properly posted?
For the record, Lucille Rayo, yes, the applicant sent us a photo of the sign, and Mrs. Casey did go out to the site. She was a little concerned about the location of the sign, but she did eventually find the sign. It was on the actual monument sign for the center.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions from the commissioners? Bryce, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more question. I would assume that if the applicant is not the owner of the property, that there's been some clearance with the landlord or something to that effect with regards to this particular business.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks.
Any more questions for staff? Lucille, you have something to say?
I just wanted to answer Mr. Klutz's question. The owner of the property has to sign the application as well, So to answer his question, the owner would know about it based on that.
Thank you, Lucille.
Okay, I would like to open public comment at this time. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this application? Colleen, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Still no public on Zoom.
Then I will close public comment and restrict comment to the commissioners. Any comments? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
Madam, I'd like to recommend approval of DP 22-0054, a special use permit for Michael Buffo, based on the staff report, required findings, presentation, and public comment.
Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from David Nelson and a second from Kirk Walder. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving to item 3 for possible action. Discussion on amendments to the Planning Commission bylaws to revise Section 4.5 relating to attendance and preparation for Planning Commission meetings in order to provide further clarification and guidance to planning commissioners regarding in-person meeting attendance, and also substitute the development coordinator for the planning manager as a person who must be provided with notice of non-attendance. That is to be found on page 127 of our packets. You have been provided a redlined copy as a supplemental. And are there questions from the planning commissioners as to what is being done here?
Madam Chair?
Kirk.
If I could just comment briefly on the red line version that was included in the supplemental. Unfortunately, the software package that the county is using doesn't pick up red line strike-throughs, so there was really only one or two and a quarters words that were struck through that give you an illustration of what was removed from the existing bylaws. The text that was in the packet is accurate as far as all of the language that was added to the bylaws. So I just wanted to point that out on the red line. The staff did an excellent job on this. They followed the directions of the Planning Commission at a previous meeting. I think Sam Taylor and you, Madam Chair, have been very strong on the desire for us to comply with the Nevada revised statutes with the open meeting law, but also to make the goal aspirational that members attend in person. We always have situations, as I'm sure Bryce is having now, whether it be work or family or health or others that come up, and that's why we do allow participation remotely, sometimes on Zoom, sometimes even on telephone if there's a crisis that does not allow somebody to participate on Zoom or a connectivity issue. So I think you've done a very good job in bringing this forward, Madam Chair. My only concern would be a minor one, that the reasons that are given are both a little bit vague and a little bit too precise, but I don't think we'll run afoul of that. So I support the language that is before us in the revisions, and I commend you for your attention to this matter and the staff's participation in giving us a good document.
Are there other comments from the commissioners?
Yes, I too support the language that has been drafted. I think it's very important that, to the extent possible, all commissioners must be in person at these meetings. It allows for better exchange between the commissioners as well as listening to the public. Thank you.
Bryce, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the changes. I've repeatedly said on the record that I think the meetings flow better in person. That being said, I think the one area where it gets a little tricky is particular meetings like this, where they're a special meeting. They start off as maybe one agenda item, and then other agenda items are added to it, so it no longer becomes necessarily a special meeting, but it becomes an added planning commission meeting. And so, in my particular case, my schedule is busy, and so I make sure that my time is carved out every month for the particular planning commission meetings that are on the calendar. But I think when the special meetings come up, it's a little challenging in short notice to either attend in person or to attend the entire meeting, depending on how long the meeting may go, based on what may be added to the special meeting agenda. So I just think that, as I've stated in the past, we just need to keep that in mind. There are those of us that just our schedules just aren't, in my particular case, it's just not as flexible as somebody else's, but I try to attend every meeting, and then when possible, I'll be there in person.
And that falls under a reason excusing attendance, business activity. So I think we've got that covered, and we understand that several of our still working members, such as Mark and you, definitely have things that come in the way, and we do understand that you can't always be here in person. Soon, though, things will quiet down for you, and we hope that you travel safely. If there is no other comment, then can we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to make a motion. Do you want to ask for public comment? I don't
Yes,
see anybody in the
that's
meeting room,
true.
and I would assume that...
Colleen, do we have anyone on Zoom?
I'm sorry, I missed it if you asked me, Madam Chair, but we still do not have any public on Zoom.
Thank you. Then I'll close public comment. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would move that we approve PC Resolution Number 2022-01 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second. Sorry, Mark.
We have a motion made by Kirk Walder, a second by David Nelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will now turn to closing public comment. Seeing no one here, Colleen, anyone on closing public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No public on Zoom.
Then I will close closing public comment. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Mr. Walder.
Madam Chair, I do have closing comments, but I believe you wanted to acknowledge the receipt of some materials that were sent to the Planning Commission.
This is true. I have been remiss in acknowledging Jerry Turner for sending supplemental materials to each planning commissioner through the planning staff on the last few months. He's been sending them. And also we received supplemental materials for this meeting from Ellie Waller, who could not be here in person. And you have closing comments you would like to make?
Yes, ma'am. On March 17th, closing public comment was made to the Board of Commissioners that discussed actions taken by the Planning Commission at our March 8th meeting. Comments were made that, in my view, were untrue, uncalled for, unkind, and slanderous. I will not repeat the comments as they are a matter of public record, but they were directed at individuals on the staff of community development, and they deeply offended me. That kind of language has no place in any public forum. The individual making those comments has apologized to the Board of County Commissioners, and I accept that apology. I have observed a disturbing trend of the increased use of insulting language at all levels of policy debate, but certainly Douglas County can show that we discuss issues in a civil manner, based on facts, not personal attacks. Let me provide the following quotations of the individual who has repeatedly issued offensive comments. On April 1st, 2003, before the Nevada Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, he said, quote, "If AB 427 implied that Assemblyman Hertrick is a shill for the development community, then AB 428 confirms it. This is shameless pandering to special interest groups to the detriment of the general public," unquote. Minutes from the July 18th, 2017 Planning Commission state that this individual, quote, "didn't like Mr. Anderson's chart and suggested that he had been reprimanded for unethical behavior," unquote. At the August 8th meeting, the individual, quote, "apologized publicly to Mr. Anderson and the Planning Commission for his misleading and inappropriate comments." At the July 14th, 2020 meeting of the Planning Commission, the individual said, quote, "And here we are 3 years later hiring another consultant to bail out the staff who's been incapable of bringing forth an update. This is not the time to be spending stretched taxpayer dollars on another consultant to make up for staff's incompetence," unquote. The individual subsequently told me, quote, "I will try to keep it clean," unquote. During the Board of Commissioners meeting of September 3rd, 2020, the individual attacked another staff member, saying his, quote, "obstinance and wrong-headed approach brought forward a flawed agenda." Then said, quote, "in private enterprise, he would have already been relieved of his job. The county manager should seriously consider that option, unquote. Finally, in the matter of the comments recently made, the individual in an email to me on March 17th said, quote, "I try to only use insulting language when it is truly deserved," unquote. No, insulting language is never deserved. We need civility. Madam Chair, you read an advisory before our meetings that says, "The Planning Commission wants to encourage the respectful consideration of all views by the members of the public. If the content is willfully disruptive of the meeting by being irrelevant, repetitious, slanderous, offensive, inflammatory, irrational, or amounts to a personal attack or interfering with the rights of others, the individual will be asked to stop speaking." Douglas County is fortunate to have skilled, hardworking staff in all departments, from the county manager's office to the clerk staff, the district attorney staff, and the community development staff. We also have many members of the public who present thoughtful and respectful comments at our meetings. I hope this will be the case in the future. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Bryce?
No, Madam Chair, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallner. With that, I will bring this meeting to a close at 1:55 p.m.